We are the Navy Blues. We are the old dark Navy Blues. We're the team that never lets them down. We're the only team old Carlton knows.
Well, hi everyone. Here we are in beautiful sunny Perth in Western Australia for a very special edition of Talking Blue with Rocco and myself. And we're joined today by former West Australians, well they are West Australians, but former Carlton playing West Australians and Premiership players John Dorotich and Richard Dennis. Welcome boys.
How are you boys? How you going?
Great to see you. And thanks very much for joining us on our show.
Good to be here.
Yeah, and we feel very privileged that
100%.
two of you came at once and jumped at the chance to talk to us here on this high-rating YouTube show.
Yeah, so that's it. That's exactly right. So it definitely is a pleasure that you joined us on the jumper punch. Did you ever give like a good jumper punch on the ground?
No, I was never strong enough.
Come on, Rich, I saw you give it.
I was never strong enough. I did try, but it would have just glanced off it. So no, not me. Yeah. Him maybe.
I reckon you against Lockett. Did you ever give him a jumper?
There was a few of them along the journey. So if you're playing on people like Lockett, Brereton, Roger Merritt, people like that, it's you've got to give as good as you get, sort of thing.
It was a different game, wasn't it? Those days.
Richard was a very nice player and all that, so he didn't have that many mean streaks in his body, but I'm sure if somebody was to whack him, you'd get back.
Yeah.
But in our era,
we've all got a little bit of white line fever.
We do. It's just a matter of whether someone is strong enough and gets the right timing with it to make an impact.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
You couldn't.
I tell you what, Dora, I remember seeing you play on Lockett at this game at Princes Park in 1992. We actually profiled this game only a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. And I think you went on to him in the second half and you kept him just about kickless.
Yeah, actually.
And Lockett whacked Matty Hogg straight after the siren, and I saw a few jumper punches going on that after that.
No, it was an interesting day, that one, because in 92 I'd been to Adelaide. We played Adelaide in a pre-season game, and I've sort of done a nice coat hanger to Brenton Sanderson, and leading up to all of that I got reported for striking, and I thought, okay, I've done it, I've given him a coat hanger, so go to the tribunal, plead guilty. I think, okay, my fall's going to become 2. And then all of a sudden the tribunal calls in the medical people from Adelaide who were doing it via television, and the doctor said, yeah, we took him down to get some x-rays because we feared his jaw was broken. And I'm sitting there going, you idiots, like, well, I've pled guilty, just say 2 weeks, John, and off we go. But what that meant was I'd missed the first 4 weeks of the home and away season in 92. Round 6 we played St Kilda at Princess Park, as you said, Vince, and Sauce wasn't playing, and Michael Sexton, who ended up being an absolute champion of the game for Carlton.
He started on him,
a beautiful player, really good young fella, and I thought, okay, this is good. I'm on Stuart Lowe. Everything's going all right until the second quarter. I reckon about the 6-minute mark, the flags had just finished waving. That was Plugger's 6th goal on Michael. I looked to the interchange.
You mean on Sexton?
Yeah, on Sexton. Yeah. And I looked to the interchange bench and the runner was coming in my direction and I was going okay against Stuart Lowe without any conflict, and he comes up to me, the runner, he goes, Doro, Parko wants you to go and play on Lockett. I said, can you go back and tell Parko to get stuck? I'm not doing it. So unfortunately that was my first experience on him, and I decided, like, we were both the same size, but he was probably 10 kilo heavier.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, you've just got to play in front of him a couple of metres, cut the angles, he's going to whack me, hit me in the back of the head. And the game ended up, as you said, Vince, because many years ago my son came up to me in relation to this game and he said, my mates and I were looking on AFL useless stats. He said, what player got 2 Brownlow votes in a game, Carlton versus St Kilda, for 2 kicks, 1 handball and 1 mark? And it was me. And I said, but there's a logic to what actually unfolded on this day. So as Plugger kicks his 6th goal about 7 minutes into the second quarter, 6 goals 2, he never touched the ball for the rest of the game.
So he never actually touched the ball?
Never got a kick,
I've never got a
handball.
Position, yeah.
Rex Hunt gave me a couple of votes on 3AW footy. But at the end, you were right, Vince, right in front of the social club. He's leading me to the. I jumped up and I punched
You
it,
did.
and then it was, just bumbling around, and Plugger was come. Poor old Matty Hogg was coming from the other direction. The siren's gone. Plugger's just gone bang straight into Hoggy's head. I said, "Oh shit, I better do something here." So I then put my arms around Plugger, and I can't actually say what he said to me. All he said was, "Let go, you dirty wop." And I thought, oh, okay, so Nicky Winmar was in the vicinity trying to calm things down. The umpire comes up, spins Plugger around, he reports him, and he was really grumpy. And, and then I had the pleasure of playing on him later in the year in a State of Origin game at the MCG.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he kicked 5 on me, but that wasn't bad considering Victoria kicked 26 and WA kicked 11.
Yeah.
And the other reasonable goal kickers in the front half with Plugger were Jay Dunstall and Gary Apple.
Not bad for forwards.
So I think they kicked 16 amongst the 3 of them, sort of thing. And Derek Kickett won the Simpson Medal for WA as being the best player on the ground, and I actually finished second in the voting. So
there you go.
5 goals was all right. Under the
under the
duress of how
circumstances.
much football came into the front half, but that was an interesting game with Plugger. So.
He was an interesting player. Man.
I remember that very well because I rang Dora a few weeks ago and said, "Happy 60th birthday!" And by the way, happy 60th.
Thank you.
I know it was a couple of months ago now, but I said, do you remember a game that you played half your life ago in 1992 when you were 30? And that was the game.
Sounds like
against
you do.
Carlton.
I do. I've got
Every moment.
I've got some vivid memories, and then I have some memory relapse, and that might be associated to getting belted in the head a reasonable amount of times over the journey. But you do remember those, the game sort of thing. We won. We were behind for a fair way that day, and but at the same point in time, I'm not sure whether we were out at Waverley or down at Moorabbin. I reckon it was Waverley. I reckon Lockett kicked 13 one day on Stephen and I.
Oh, they did.
And it was almost
That was at Moorabbin.
it was almost like musical
They
chairs.
come back from behind too and won that game. Yeah.
Was
that 88?
It might have been rugby.
Because
at the end of the day,
I wasn't playing. I did my knee the week before.
The week
And,
before, yes.
But I was watching that, and Lockett did kick it.
there's nothing we could do. Like even then in the back in those years where we could hit an arm and do something like that, that's not allowed today. But I remember vividly one day when Robert Harvey, and we all remember how great Harves was, and he was a feeder to Plugger. It's almost like the ball's coming in, so he's getting to the 50-metre arc. So there's only me and Lockett inside their 50. So he bounces through the 50-metre mark, and he gets to 45, and then he gets to 40, and I'm yelling out, "Kick the goal, Harves! Kick the goal!" And then he goes a little diagonal 15-metre kick, and Plugger takes a chest mark, and then he's having a shot on goal. I give up. What can I do?
That's probably also part of the reason why they didn't win a lot of games then, because they were too Lockett-centric.
Yeah, they were.
And they didn't have any. Stuart Lowe was a very brilliant player.
Yeah.
But they just kept going Lockett, which
And
good,
Stuart
but
Lowe
didn't help
was
the team.
not quite as accurate for goal, of
he had an
course. So
interesting
they probably,
kick.
But he was a brilliant player.
yeah.
Well,
Great
they
player.
had some good. Well, now we're going to do the Saints show here. But they had a good. We were saying this. That what a team they had such stars in that side, and they weren't.
Successful.
They weren't successful, but the stars you can just. There were so many of them, But Carlton was a good side too. Those years, Those years there. When you come along to Carlton
Start of 87,
in '87.
Tell us how that happened, Rocky. And first of all, tell us how you got the nickname Rocky.
Okay.
Richard Rocky Dennis.
Yeah.
Where did that come?
Playing Colts
Good name.
at East Perth. Got reported. It was quite a messy game against East Freo,
Yep.
and a lot of sniping. And one of their guys hit one of our guys after the siren. So I've gone, have to go and stick up for the team. So I grabbed this guy, pushed him, and whatever. Anyway, there was an all-in brawl, trainers, everything, and I got reported for hitting that guy.
Right.
And I didn't, and it became a joke because I was quiet and I didn't hit people. They called me Rocky Balboa as a joke, as sarcasm, like a lot of nicknames start, and it just stuck. And yes, I think as nicknames goes, it's better than some others. But then when I went to Carlton, I went with Steve Daru.
Yes.
We were at the same club at East Perth, so he brought my nickname to Carlton, and then it's just stuck. So So it was out of sarcasm,
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us how you got to Carlton. You got recruited at the end of '86 and started in '87. Great timing.
The cut-off date. Now, I was travelling in America with a few friends.
Yep.
And we were having a great time, not thinking about football at all. This is in October. I get a phone call. I went to a friend's house in Texas, rang my mum that night to say, Mum, still alive, having a great time, blah, 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 because no mobile phones back then. And then the next day we went out and had a few beers and got back and had a message from Ian Collins that we want to draft you.
Did you have any idea? Like, was
Look, I'd met with Colo a couple of times. I met with the people at Collingwood and Essendon. We met, but nothing concrete, nothing firm. But when I left to go overseas, there was no Eagles. But that was announced while we were overseas, that the Eagles were starting in '87, and from, I think it was the 1st of November, no more recruiting, the draft starts.
Right, okay.
I was in America late October, spoke to Colo, and over the phone I said, yep. Backtrack, he's offered me to go to Carlton. I said, no worries, but can I just find out what the Eagles are doing? And I rang up Brian Cook, who is now at Carlton. I said, Cookie, am I in the Eagles 25? He said, no, you're not, but you're in the next 5. I said, thank you. That's not a certainty. Carlton was a certainty, so I...
There you go.
Good decision.
In hindsight, it's the best decision.
Great decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, as it turned out, some of the Eagles boys were recruited, so I would have been in that 25, but best decision.
You weren't to know.
Yeah. So, so when it came home, we did all the negotiating. Not there was a lot of not to negotiate, and then went over there. And good timing and
great timing. And you had a really good year. 1987 was a fantastic year for you.
One of my only years where I
slotted in on that
injured.
half forward flank beautiful.
Yeah. No injuries, which helps, and a good pre-season, which helps. And maybe I was probably the right type of player for what Carlton needed. There was.
You weren't even 21 yet.
No, I had my 21st over there in the RD7.
And a bit like Peter Bozzusto in 1981, you just seemed to slot in on that half-forward flank, and you took a lot of great marks, high-flying marks. At the same time, you had agility. You could really run quite quickly for a half-forward flanker.
Well, I suppose I had a bit of height.
Yeah.
Back then, you didn't have 3 talls. You had 2 talls. You had the centre forward and the full forward.
Yes.
And we had that. Yeah.
Everyone else is either a pocket player or a
I
flanker.
suppose I sort of complemented that, which allowed sticks to stand a bit closer to the goals, which I did a lot of my work up in the midfield. And Wolsey backed me.
Yep.
I played 1 game in the reserves, and I did okay, and he put me straight in. Look, I had a 3-year deal, and I thought if I played 1 game, I'd be happy. I think
a lot of players say that. You can play 1 game. Were you the same? If I can get 1 game?
He was recruited as a star. I wasn't. I was sort of stuck.
Well, mine was different. Like, mine was back in the Form 4 days, so I remember my memory comes back. Like, at the end of it, you would remember Andrew Dawson and all that. I remember played State of Origin in '84, my first one, which is probably one of the great State of Origin games.
Yes.
WA won by 4 points.
That's right.
Well.
Gary Ablett Senior kicking 8 goals on my mate Phil Cronin from South Fremantle. But we played that, and then I think it was at the end of '85 I went over to Melbourne. They got me over there. So the principal back in those days, it was a Form 4. So Andrew Dawson was my chaperone for 3 days, and then Colo locked me in an offer and said, how much? And I remember sitting there prior to leaving, the South Fremantle directors would sit there and go, don't sign anything when you're over there, and here's me, Mr. Naive. And I'm thinking to myself, when Colo goes, how much do you want to sign? Because the agreement was that if I signed a Form 4, if I come to Melbourne in 1985, 86 or 87, I was bound to play with Carlton, and then you negotiate a contract.
But you didn't have to go to Melbourne.
No, I didn't have to go to Melbourne if I chose not to. Yeah. So
that was really cool. So we got that all sorted. I came back home and bought a brand new Ford Fairmont back in the day. But the boys at South Fremantle, they're going, whatever you do, don't sign anything. I said, well, if I played 20 games at South Fremantle in 1985, I've got $3,000.
Yeah.
All I can say is Colo's cheque was a bit bigger than the $3,000. So I said, I've got a new car, whether I go or stay, it doesn't matter.
Right.
There's no obligation other than that if you go, they've got access to me, sort of thing.
So you signed?
Yeah, you signed it. I took the cash cheque home.
Yeah,
I didn't have a phone back then, so I sent a telegram. It might have been back to the missus.
Yeah.
But look, and that was, at that time, it's funny because there was a lot of clubs. I was a Hawthorn supporter back then.
Really?
So, in that period of time, and then Hawthorn were an evolving club. They'd played in 3 flags, or the 3 grand finals, sorry. But they had the Chris Mews, the Chris Langfords, the Dunstalls, the Brereton, the Russell Morris, Peter Curran. So me, 6'4", play at both ends, wasn't on the agenda for Hawthorn. So everybody done. But why would you not want to come to a football club like Carlton with the history it's got? And then on the same breath you've got Bradle, Sticks, and Peter Motley coming at the same time. So it was a great...
And don't forget about Bernie Evans.
Yeah, Bernie Evans. So it was a great threesome with the boys from South Australia and then myself coming along. But, those 3 from Adelaide, barring poor old Peter Motley's accident that he had, and everybody to the day, if you speak to him, reckon he was probably the best of the 3 of those boys. And you look back at Braddles and Sticks' career and you say, wow, if that was to be right, if he wasn't injured in that accident, I think Premierships might have been consecutive rather than just one and then a hit and miss for a number of years that ended up being, until Parko came back in 95 and they had that wonderful season. So.
Yeah. Who'd you Barry for?
I was probably North Melbourne. Look, no one passionately, because it was more about waffle for me growing up.
Yeah, that's true.
And I was an East Perth boy and I grew up in the East Perth zone. And I went for North Melbourne only because a lot of East Perth players went to North Melbourne.
Okay, yeah.
Ross Glendinning, Phil Kelly,
of course,
Spencer and the like. So,
That's
and
right.
Kevin Bryant. So
In fact, Ross Glendinning went from North Melbourne back to be the captain of the Eagles
in
their first year.
Yeah.
Which was your first year at Carlton,
Yeah,
87.
that's right, yeah. So I was there more for the East Perth side of things as opposed. We'd watch Victorian football, but it was more about waffle for me. But of course, that was always the preferred ultimate option is to go there. They had bigger money, of course, but
Bigger money, it's better football?
Yeah.
Did you think it was better football?
Well, the waffle back in our time, in the early 80s, back in
Was
the
good
days.
football.
The waffle was very
great.
much on
Great.
par with
I reckon
VFL.
the difference is, look, waffle would have maybe 10 or 12 very good players, whereas the Victorian teams would have
A lot more.
16, 17, 18 very good players. So they had the depth, but the waffle football, I loved it.
Quality of football was fantastic to watch. I remember seeing some of the grand finals back in those days. Whether it's
Crowds,
waffle or sandful. And the quality of footy was very high.
We played a much more open game because we had bigger ovals and usually better weather. It was a very free-flowing, skillful game and good running game.
Yes.
Victorians' smaller ovals and muddier ovals was a big... And so
contest.
invariably the Victorians were bigger boys, stronger.
Yeah.
We were more athletic. And that was the difference back in those 2 games.
Yeah.
So can I ask?
Oh, so go on, right? Go on.
I was just going to ask the 87 year. Let's talk about...
Let's talk about that great year. You, of
first-
course, had the disappointment of losing 86. Then you
Then
got
they-
the... Then they brought the...
Then they bring in the big guns.
To get it over the line, they had to
Bring in
bring
the big
Rocky
guns.
over.
They brought in the big guns in 82.
That's it. They got the...
Well, he made
The master
difference.
stroke was to recruit him.
Well, my year, you talk about nails and sticks and Mox coming over and I had Peter Sartori, brilliant waffle
Well,
player.
he came over with you, didn't he, in 87? He was another one.
Mark Daly, myself and Steve DeRue.
Because of the retirement of Mark McClure, they needed another centre-half forward, so they got Peter Sartori.
And Satters would have definitely played in the 87.
Yeah, he had a hamstring, didn't he?
Well, he got a few injuries. I don't think, but he played very well for North Melbourne last game of the year.
Yeah.
I know we talked about Sticks' goal.
Yes.
I think Satters kicked 5 or 6 goals
Yeah,
that game.
he played really well.
And he got injured in the second semi. and he couldn't play. So he would have most definitely been playing. So
that was sad actually for him.
Yeah. Very.
That was another one that people don't talk about. They talk about
Bernie.
How Bernie Evans
and
missed
Moss.
out because of suspension,
And Moss with the
obviously
accident,
Motley and Des English and all
but
that.
Satters is certainly
But
one that.
Torres was often the forgotten person that missed out because of injury.
He was a very talented player,
Very,
6'5", 6'6", but he's
Really
only
tall.
very lean,
Intelligent.
and he probably just needed an extra 4 or 5 kilos.
So
on
they were
his
like
body.
the missing pieces, weren't they? A little bit like in '95 we brought over Clappe and we brought Camporeale and Glenn Manson, guys like that. They just were the missing pieces, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure whether it was designed. I mean, Nails was a brilliant player.
Oh,
he
Nails
was
was
one
another
of the stars,
Yep.
like the year before. But Steve and I weren't. Whether it was designed that way or whether it just fell that way.
Yeah.
But you still had a lot of good players there who were probably burnt from the '86 flag.
Yeah.
The '86 loss.
Yeah.
So I know they were a lot of very motivated to do
Yeah.
well. So and I know Wolsey was.
That's for sure.
I reckon to win a flag you need a lot of luck.
I
You
reckon
need
you
a lot of
do.
hard work, a lot of luck. We didn't have many injuries that year. Things went our way. We won a few close games. Winning that last game at North Melbourne against North by a
finished on
point
top
or
of
a
the
couple
ladder,
of points.
of course, yeah.
That allows us to go top, which gets us a week off. Little things like that
Yeah.
went our way, and it worked. And
The
we
rest
have to
is
say-
history, as they say,
Yeah.
Rock. So
Yeah.
it's in the
Yeah.
record books.
It
So.
is in the record books, yeah.
Did you enjoy the win and for how long?
For how long?
For how long until you went to London and played in the
Well, we went to London, I think, a
Oh,
week
did you
after.
both go to London?
Yeah, we-
I went the year before, and that was the Battle of Britain. When
No, the year
No,
before
the
was
year before.
87.
No.
Yeah.
87 was the Battle of Britain.
we went in
after you won the
86.
first.
Yeah, you went to
I went
Tokyo
over
in
there and I
86.
got knocked. No, I didn't go to Tokyo. We
Oh.
went to London. I got knocked
Okay.
out.
Right.
You know, we had some great, goal kick out technology
Not
with
in
Robert
86.
Walls. Well, it was one of the years I got knocked out in
That was
London.
the game.
Is that the one that Ian Aiken got knocked out?
Yeah, he had his jaw broken.
that was
by Alistair
87.
Clark.
That's
That was the Battle of Britain.
Well, I was there
At
because
the end of 87.
I'll show you the highlights on YouTube. Go and
Yeah.
find
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Carlton versus North Melbourne.
Yeah.
Because Harmsy kicked one up the middle of the ground, and
That's
I'd
it.
start with me back this way, and then all of a
That's
sudden I'd run back, turn around, there it comes. Donald
collected
Donald
McDonald.
McDonald. I
Knew
was just
what
going to
was
say.
coming. He's
That's
come
87.
from the wing.
Yeah.
And he's just gone bang, and I've been smashed. And then Reese has come in, wanting to punch everybody up. Then the Cracker Brothers come in, and they start belting Reese around the head, sort of thing. So
I think John Kennedy might have given them a few instructions to, not hold back.
Well, I think
because-
North missed out. They made the finals, but they got belted by Melbourne by 10.
Yes, they did.
And I think that was their motivation.
And
Not sure
also
what-
that last game of the year where we won after the side
yeah. And I'm not sure how winning an exhibition game like that
does anything.
does help. But
Makes a statement.
And we went over there purely as an entertainment,
Junket.
as a free trip, a junket, absolutely. And then when one punch started going, then of course you retaliate. Next thing you know, that was chaos.
So you played the game.
Yeah.
You played the game, except you didn't really
I
play
can't
much of
remember.
it.
Well, I remember. I think Bucks had chased Alistair Clarkson
Yeah,
after
around
he
the
went.
goal line.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
and
yeah.
Alistair.
Jono, you mean?
Well,
Jono.
and Bucks was there,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, I think Clarko was standing next to the goal umpire.
He was too.
And then they're yelling out, "You can't hide Clarkson because we will get you before the game is over."
was
And that, like what he did wasn't right. He was looking at somebody and he's come from
Oh, no,
behind.
that's
and
it.
gone crack.
Definitely. He was definitely out to get him. No, no.
Yeah.
Hey,
But
how
I
was
think he
Wolsey's
regretted it.
instructions? He is not to leave the ground
Yeah, that's
upright.
Yeah, and they were sprinting off to the boundary line. Clarkson was dragged,
Yeah.
and Bucks was chasing him.
That's right.
To the interchange. But I travelled with around America for 2 weeks after that with Ian Aiken.
Okay.
So he didn't have his jaw broken; it was swollen, but it wasn't broken.
It was never the same.
Well,
Never the same after that.
I think,
Yeah.
I think he had his jaw broken in a game when we played Hawthorn out at Waverley one day. So I'm playing on Dermot. I think he might have been on Russell Morris or Peter Curran.
Yeah.
So then I reckon Dermot had a good day, so he was toweling me up. And by the 10 minutes into the second quarter, we sort of swapped over. Now you've got to clear, as a young player, Ian's got to understand instructions that come from people like Dermot. If you're going to hang on to the jumper, I'm going to whack you. And I'm only going to give you 1 or 2 warnings.
Is that what he actually said?
Yeah, and then Dermot behind the plate just grabbed him, and smacked him. He went down and he did break his jaw in that period. So then we go in at
Was
half.
he cited for that?
Hey,
Behind play,
I can't remember, but I copped it at half time. So Wolsey's come in and just abused the hell out of me because it's all my fault. If you played properly today, the kid wouldn't be on the stretcher with a broken jaw. I had to move you. I said, come on, Rob, here's the tape of you falling over when the wind blew you in the game. And at the end of the day, you look like you were hit by a cyclone and nothing hit you. Anyway.
You wouldn't have been his favourite player.
No, you know.
But so you asked the question, how long did we celebrate for? Look, it was a great. I think we went a week and a half after to London.
Yeah.
So we only had that week.
That's right.
And it was a fantastic time. A lot of good memories from what I can remember. But yeah, no, we did all have a good time. I think.
Stand by your man.
The Monday
Oh,
on the
that's
pub.
right. Now, how soon after the Premiership did that?
That was
Well, that would have been
that
the
after?
mad-
Oh,
the
that
mad-
was on the
that was
Monday
the-
after.
yeah.
Right.
Stand by your man.
You know when
Stephen
Sticks
Kerr,
sang
yeah.
Stand
That
by
was
Your Man?
95.
That was
Whatever.
87.
No. It was at the end of
87.
87 when we won the
At the
flag.
front of Norton's.
Out the front of Norton.
On Royal Parade there.
It was,
right across from the club.
Exactly.
Are you sure it's not?
Absolutely.
So
We were there.
I know. I'm asking you. Are you sure? That's
But so
ridiculous.
for me, that's probably the highlight of the post-match celebration.
Yeah.
Because, like, Saturday night was with all the members at the,
Yes.
at the
I remember
Southern
that.
Cross and Backer Club. And it was
Southern
good.
Cross Hotel.
Yeah. And then Sunday was at the club with
Yeah.
all the members, which was great. But then Monday was just the players.
Yeah.
And of course the Rezzies won it that year as well.
Yes, that's right.
So
Yeah.
it was 40 of us.
I think it was
45
Rod
of us.
Ashman and Jimmy
Yeah,
Buckley
Ashman.
might have been the captain, vice
Ken
captain.
Sheldon was
Kenny-
still playing.
Actually,
No,
there was
Kenny
a-
Sheldon had trying to St Kilda.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
87.
There was a fairly good reserve side too.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
year,
yeah.
too.
Spiro Cook
So
and
that
the
was
others.
good. It's just
No,
the
he went
players.
to St
No,
Kilda
he
too.
went-
Oh, did he go
Bulldogs.
there year too?
In
I know they
87,
went.
in 87, the players that were playing for St Kilda that used to be Carlton players, Kenny Sheldon, Spiro Corcamilis,
Wow.
Alex Marcoux, Warren Wow Jones, Ricky Nixon, Ian
Was
Muller,
Harmsy in
and
that
Peter
one?
McConville.
7.
Was Harmsy?
Oh, it was at least 7 or 8 of them. No, not Harmsy. Harmsy
Harmsy
was
was-
part of the 87 reserves.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
Harmsy-
saying. In the
Yeah.
87
Harmsy
reserve.
and
yeah.
Bucks would have led that team out.
Yeah.
Harmsy and Bucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then there was a bit of beer consumed at Norton's, I would have
Oh,
assumed,
yeah.
on that Monday.
That
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the beer.
So I think Wolsey was saying to us that he wished he had have celebrated that premiership more. He was already thinking about the following year, and the lesson out of that is enjoy your successes
Enjoy the
for
moment,
as long as
yeah.
you can, realistically.
Because I thought 88, yeah, we were talking like premierships,
Yep.
the opportunity, but then we had a few injuries. I mean,
Yeah.
me and Warren McKenzie did knees. Next week, Peter Dean,
That's right.
Dave Kernan did a knee,
Yes.
and we came third. But you know, there's 4 players out of a
Yeah,
regular.
didn't
There's
quite
holes
feel
to
like the
fill
same as
there.
87.
Yeah, we didn't have the luck that we had in '87 with the injury-free run and
Well, the biggest difference is that we lost the second semi to Hawthorn this time instead of winning it.
yeah.
So then we had to play Melbourne in a
Melbourne,
prelim,
and they were on fire. Yeah.
and they were really
Yeah.
on fire at that
Yeah.
stage, and they beat us in the prelim. And
tell me-
made it into a grand final. Then they got whacked by Hawthorn. But
Tell me what
yeah.
you used to remember of the grand final. What
Yeah, it
I
was
don't know, what do you
obviously a
remember?
really hot
What do
day.
you
We all,
remember?
Well, I
about that?
started
30,
up in the
33
forward line.
degrees or something.
Yeah, and it was the
Yeah, you
first
did.
time.
You started forward line,
They
didn't you?
swapped you.
First time Tucky had worn a short sleeve jumper in 400 games. So
And Nails also
Yes.
wore long sleeve
Yeah.
to start with, but then went to short.
Yes.
it's a bit too hot there for a while, but I started in the forward line. I think
right.
we kicked a couple of goals
Yeah.
or something like that, and Reese was down
Yeah.
doing a good job on
On
Dermot,
Dermot.
and everything was sweet.
Yeah, what would you like?
I'll have another one.
I'll have another one of them, brother. Yeah.
And I'll have another one of them too.
So, you know, he did a really,
Might as well.
really good job on Dermot, but I think at the end of the day, if you watch the game, I don't think Hawthorn helped Dermot
No.
during the course with their ball use. A lot of them were hit and miss, and it was more advantage Reese.
Was that because there was pressure upfield
from
which
you
did-
and me
well,
and
from
Kenny
the
Hunter?
midfielders and the high half forwards
Could have been,
who
yeah.
didn't allow them to have the easy possessions.
Yeah, so he would have got frustrated with that
True.
Dermot.
Just saying it.
True. And the other thing, of course, was that so much was on him to make it happen because Dunstall didn't play in the
That's
grand
right.
final.
Dunstall didn't play that.
So Peter Curran played full forward, I think, from memory. And Dermy was there at centre-half forward thinking, what the hell's Reece Jones doing on me? And Reece did a great job on him, obviously. But
we all walked out of that meeting, I think, the pre-game meeting, when we realised Reece was going on him. I'm thinking, I'm not sure how that's going to work.
It was a bold move, wasn't it?
It worked.
It was a bold move, and
Reece
it worked.
kept his temper in check and focused on a job, and he did it well, and deserved the goal.
He got
Exactly, which was great.
I mean, I don't remember how I got to the ground. There's a lot of things I don't remember about it.
Yeah.
One of my biggest memories, though, is running out, and I'm thinking, it's not as good as I was expecting, because Carlton played in a few big games.
Look.
There you go, perfect.
Thank you, sir. Pardon the view, everyone, at the moment.
I'm looking here.
That's all right.
Say hello. Say hi.
No problem.
Thank you.
By the way, everyone, we're here at the beautiful Hyatt Regency Hotel in Perth. If you ever come to Perth, this is the hotel to come to.
So, yeah, like I said, running out, because Carlton, we played Collingwood at Essendon at MCG and big crowds. And I was a little bit, then we ran down the wing as you do in a warm-up, and the crowd seemed to follow us.
I like it. Wave.
Yeah, wave. And I had tingles down my spine, and I turned to Ian Aiken, who were good mates. I turned with him with a smile on my face to say, how good is this?
Yeah.
So I'm glad there weren't cameras there, because there would have been cameras looking at me with a big smile on my face.
Like a little kid.
How good is this? So I remember that clearly.
That's a good memory, man. I like
Yeah.
I like that.
Would have been
Were
a
you
great
nervous?
time as a 21-year-old in '87.
Look,
With that
nervous.
Premiership medal around your neck.
Look, absolutely. I mean, that's why I don't think I remember a lot before the game, because you're too busy focused on what you're trying to do. And we played Hawthorn a couple of times, so I knew who would be on me, and we sort of knew. So we were focusing on all of that. And yes, you do get nervous, but we had a psych talk to us in the week off and gave us a few ideas on how to manage that. You know, just how to manage the big games. And just little things that I still use now. Stay in the moment and don't get carried away and don't think too far ahead and just focus on what you're doing. Little things like that, which as a 21-year-old you don't hear it much. And of course my other good memory is I remember I was buggered in the last quarter because it was hot. But when the siren went, I could have run 15 victory laps, 15 lap of honours, because the energy levels,
the adrenaline,
just went,
Was that the best moment after like a game, or especially grand final, that half an hour after that, like, or that hour after, like, just the relief and that?
Got probably two things that go, like the relief and sort of excitement of the players that played, but then when you're wandering around the ground and you don't realise the impact that it has on the fans. Whilst we're playing for ourselves,
of course,
to win the game, and the 20 players that played, they're the only ones that get the Premiership medal. The coach gets his medal, and Reece gets his Norm Smith. But that's one of the things that resonates with me over the journey of time, from the moment I got there and then when you finish. Like, I think WA's probably, I found WA a bit different in the way they receive football and all that. Like Melbourne, it's just part of life.
It's a religion.
And it makes so much happiness to people that sometimes, I remember Barb and all that would always be down at the club, and they might be on disability pensions or something like that. But the absolute joy that the Carlton Football Club playing well and being successful that brings to those people is enormous, and I don't think people realise that, because sometimes their life might not be as exciting as what our lives may have been at that point in time, but to see the smiles and give them a big hug, and they've got all their name badges on their jackets and everything, and you just go home and you think, wow, like, we made a difference today.
To a lot of lives.
Exactly.
Well, as a big supporter, I'm telling you, you make a difference. You absolutely do, man. Like, I've said this, what you said is exactly right. Like, a lot of people, their lives are mundane. Like, you don't really get that winning feeling much, you know what I mean? You work, you go and do that, and footy gives you that, makes you feel like a winner, just for that moment.
Just because you support that team.
Yeah, because you support that team, and that's what you guys did, you know? You made us feel like, I used to walk around with my chest pumped out, man. I felt like 10 men those years, so...
Look, another memory I have also is the Thursday afterwards, because it's so busy afterwards celebrating and having a good time. Ian Aiken and I, and Steve Daru, maybe Adrian Gleeser coming with the fourth one, were playing golf. And I remember walking down the fairway, about the 8th hole, something like that, turned to Ian Aiken and gone, we just won a flag.
Yeah.
So it was one of the first times you were sobered up, and you were by yourself in a moment, and you just think, shit, we just won a flag. And then
they're not easy to win, are they?
The big grins on,
No, they're not
big
easy.
grins on our faces.
It's not that many that have won it when you think about it. Like every now and then, if somebody gets you to want to speak at a function or something like that, and if you use very quick analogies of things, like I say, you'll sit there and go, let's imagine the game's 120 years old, and for the sake of the exercise, there's only 20 players that can win a premiership in each year. So you think, oh, okay, 120 years, 2,400 players.
Yes.
That maximum could have won a premiership.
Maximum, and some of them are going to be...
Then you start to dilute the 2 times, the
That's
3
right,
times, the 4, and you go, you know what? There might only be 1,500 people in 120 years of VFL, AFL football
Who've got a
that
medal
lay
around them.
claim to having a premiership medal. It's no different in the waffle, the sandful, the whole lot. And you are in a very small minority of people that get that.
When you look at it like that, wow.
Same with
You
gold
won at
medalists.
South Frio, did you?
Yeah, so I come back
Yeah, you
home
came
in
back
my
then.
final year at 97.
So that's a bit selfish, isn't it?
Captain too. Yeah, well, you know, I had to do something at the
I
end.
think you kicked about 120 that year.
There's something along those lines. So.
He did well that
But
year.
I had strict instructions for a lot of the young kids as an old 35-year-old. I tried to tell them that my contract didn't allow me to defend outside the 50-metre circle. So if you were going to take me on thinking that, look, I'll look at you, Rocco, I will apply token pressure, but I won't be really chasing you as hard as
And it won't be leading too hard either,
But I
so
said,
kick it
look,
up.
yeah, I said, but if you want to make the stupid mistake of going outside of 50 and continuing to bounce, and then if you mess it up, I said, there's going to be an old man and you'll see this happening with the goal umpire, and I'm on the end of it. And then once they cock it up
That's
one or
funny.
2 times, they don't run anymore, so it's great. They just hang around, and that's it. And as Rock said, like, you know, you've got all these young kids that come with their 95-kilo bodies and all of these thinking, oh, well, I'm going to beat up the old man today. And I said, I'm sure your coach would have told you before the game, don't get into a one-on-one with him because you won't win.
But you got experience, man. When you get that experience...
Well, you get that from the
With that
Locketts
age.
and the Lows and
that's
all of
right.
the great players. And I used to say to the younger ones, Fraser Gehrig started. Like Fraser played at West Coast and St Kilda,
Yes.
but he was 6'5", 88 kilo. He was
Would have been at Perth.
When he started,
there was no alignment with West Coast, and then a young kid at East Fremantle one night down at Fremantle on a Friday night. And I said to him, good luck, son. I said, look, I know your coach really well, Tony McHale, we're mates. And I said, I would almost guarantee you today, he would have told you, do not get into a one-on-one with him because you won't win it. 7 minutes into the first quarter, I've kicked 2. I said, I've told you, Rocky, here comes the runner to reinforce what Bobby told you 10 minutes ago. And then he's decided the next one to turn his back on the play and look at me. And I said, boom! And then the ball came and I marked it again, and the poor kid. But at least I was trying to educate.
So
That's what I
you
was
created
doing.
his future because he became a very good player.
Yeah,
He did become a very good
You,
player.
but you want to give something back to the
I love
kids.
it. I love it that you're putting it in their head, you're stressing them out straight away. Like
You just let them know, and then all of a sudden they're not sure what to do, the poor kids. So. But we're all like that. We all got to start once,
Of
you know,
course.
as a youngster, and that's where we learn the game. And hopefully, at the end of it all, it makes all of us better players through the knowledge we've come across over your 10, 12, 15-year careers. So.
100%.
Rocky, you played with the club until the end of '91,
Yep.
and Dora, you finished up in I think the end of '93, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Did you play in that grand final or not?
Wasn't a great end for me.
You got suspended, didn't you?
Well, I did. I sort of got David Siracosti. I just put him on the knee in the reserves.
You put
Again,
him on your
and
knee.
the only reason he got that because I gave
You
us-
make it sound like you were Santa Claus.
Well, I gave him circa Dermot Brereton to Ian Aitken back in the day. I said, Sarah, if you hang on, I'm going to whack you. And I did behind the plate. So I missed the last 4 games of the year, but I was sort of out of favour then because Parko was there.
Yes.
Peter Schockman was the physical
Yes.
sports guy.
Yes.
And
No
poor old
feeling.
Earl Spalding had a broken scaphoid bone in his wrist, and they didn't want him to have the surgery. He would have missed 10 or 12 weeks, so I was coming to the end of my tether, Sexton, and so I'm not a first choice down the back sort of thing or in the front half, and so I was plugging away in the reserves, playing centre half forward, doing good, and poor old Earl was getting injections before the game at half time, and I don't reckon he was averaging a mark a game because he just had no feeling in his wrist. He wanted the surgery, but they go, no, we can't afford it. Unfortunately,
Is that what it was? They can't afford it.
well,
As
they
in, we can't afford
Oh,
to have
I was
you
going
out
to
of the
say,
team.
you're
for
not
10 or
gonna-
12 weeks. So
You can't
then,
afford
Not that
it,
they
don't-
didn't have the money.
Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
afford him not to be there.
so
yes,
then
yes,
I
yes.
chose not to use wisdom, and I thought I'd go and ask David Parkin about the scenario that was unfolded and shared with me privately, and that didn't go down well. So Shocko said, nah, you shouldn't have gone to him and told him about that. And I said, well, hang on a minute, I'm fighting for my life here. You know, I either can or can't make a difference.
Yeah.
And, you know, in the end, I'm not saying I would have made any difference, but at least I played on Paul Salmon before,
Yes.
down at full back, and poor old Earl has to go to full back and play
Yeah.
on him when it's probably not his cup of tea.
That's right.
And then you see how good Earl was in the 95 Premiership
Yes.
year in his role at centre half forward
Well worth.
Big
with
difference.
sticks behind him, and he was just that workhorse. There was nothing fancy about Earl, but by Christ, if you're an opposition player in his vicinity, make sure you look behind,
100%.
because he plays 100% and he doesn't hold back when he's sort of competing for the footy. And that's the role of the bullocking centre half forward, which he was. Created opportunity at ground ball for the little blokes at 95. So
And another great Western Australian too,
yeah,
Earl
no,
Spalding.
he was a great player, Earl, and Carlton, you know, should be very rapt that they got him from Melbourne when they did, because he was pivotal to that 1995 Premiership year.
Absolutely. Love the way he went through Guy McKenna in that game against West Coast
That's just a fair play.
over here.
That was nice,
I think it was the
man.
second last game of the home and away season. We won by a point.
Yeah, it was a cracking game.
Oh, cracking game of
And
football.
I mean, that happens now. He's out for 6 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
It was fair at the time,
Yeah.
but that happens now. He's out.
Yeah, the rules
So-
have changed a lot in terms of what you can get away with back in the old days.
What, so you're saying the punch behind the play you can't do anymore?
You can, but if you get caught,
You
But
can't
can't
tell
now.
he's going to get caught.
There's 15 cameras around.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah,
the
that's right.
ramifications are significant in terms of weeks. In
not
my
gonna get
early
caught.
early stages, there was an umpire, Peter Cameron, that everybody know. Rocky remember Peter Cameron, and I remember like they were good. Like he shouldn't be coaching from there. Like sometimes Dermot might wander off 10 metres. Hey Doro, Dermot's easing off you, mate. You better pick him up, sort of thing. And
Is that what he used to say, really?
and then if there was a bit of a blue going on, like there's Roger Merritt and I on this particular day, Roger punched me, I punched him back. So in Camo's words, it's 1-1. Okay, get on with the game.
Fair enough.
Roger made the mistake
that.
of hitting me for the second time, and he reported. But he said, I warned you. That's one each. Punch him again, I'm going to report you. And he did. Wasn't a hard one. And then I had Diesel a couple of times prior to him coming to Carlton in 92.
That's right.
Him and I had our moments, and then up at Sydney that day, he broke Reese's jaw, and I heard
Yes.
it
That's
from,
right, yeah.
I heard it from 80 metres away.
Yeah.
And Diesel was, I'm not saying he's a conniving little fella, but you know,
He's a
wet
Yes,
that
you are.
wet
Yes, you are.
wet that night, and there was a pack, and I'm playing at centre half back, and 60, 70 metres away. I reckon there was 10 or 11 on the ground. Somehow, I reckon Diesel must have had an octopus arm. I don't know how he got in there, but
think I
he's
saw
gone
that on the
and
forward
gone
pocket.
whack. And nobody
It's called
could
when
really,
there's a will, there's a way.
yeah, nobody could really see what had
No,
unfolded.
I could see from the forward pocket the angle I had. I saw exactly what happened.
He'd just gone crack,
Exactly what happened.
you know. So
And then he ran away.
I've been reported for, like Diesel, you take a great contested mark in the back line, next thing is punch you in the guts, and I go whack. I gave him one, and then it was taken off me, and he kicked a goal. So
But that's okay. So why are all your memories about you hitting people and getting hit?
well, mate, I
And
did
it
get
never happened to me.
yeah, because you were nice.
You were too nice,
You
Rocky.
didn't- you
Maybe
didn't-
it's the way you played your game.
You didn't verbalise. You know, back in the old days, you're not allowed to do this now. Like, there's a pack of 5 going for the score. If I can't get to the ball and Dermot's head or Roger's head was there, we
And
just politely
and you
give
would
him a
coach
clip on the way
It was a
through.
must, wasn't it?
But you were coached that, weren't you?
Yeah.
The coach would say, if you can't get there, chop the arms, do it.
Hit him in the
Of course
head.
you
But
can't
as
do that.
supporters, I used to go, if you can't mark it, you make him pay. You know, like I used to say that, so yeah.
That's what brought in the chopping of the arms rule, wasn't it? Because a lot of defenders did
Well,
Didn't even go for the ball, they just cracked you on the
And
forearm.
you got away with it.
It was
so,
out.
so then if you imagine the Dunstals and Locketts and Ablets of the world, although the game's changed, I still find it humorous if somebody, the way they are and they're all in the 18-man rolling zone and everybody's up doing their thing, I just can't imagine Plugger being involved in something like that. He'd be going, okay, Rocco, mate, I might get to the end of our 50, but why would I need to go there?
That's right.
Because Doro's playing on me and he'd be in a world of pain in panic mode if it was just him and I sitting inside 50 or Sonks and Tony, and then there's 17 v 17 up there and they move the ball quickly and I'm deserted. No support.
Yeah, that's right.
Just him and they've got control of
So
the
it's
footy.
either he's going to mark it or you're going to cop it.
Or try to chop his arms, which we're allowed to do. So you sit there and think, well, if they were playing in the modern game and those forwards didn't have to be part of the defensive 18-man zone, how many goals would they kick in a game?
I mean, I would sort of like to be a forward now with the rules that they have, like chopping and blocking. The amount of free kicks forwards get now,
Except for Harry Mackay. He doesn't get any free kicks. He is absolutely raped every week.
But some football, Hawkins and Rewalk, they get a lot of free kicks, which are, but they can grab their opponent, throw them around and take a mark, and that's strength.
Yeah.
Yet if a full back does that,
Exactly.
it's got
Free kick against him.
I just don't understand it. But anyway, I suppose that's just old people complaining. We
complain
about the young people.
We complain about that every week. We go, oh, what's going on?
The game has changed.
It has
and
changed.
like Rocky said, the way the zone's in there, and I'm sure a lot of the coaches are coaching not necessarily to kick to too many contests, but when you zigzag across the ground and then all of a sudden then they roll over and you've marked it on one wing and you've kicked it over to Vince on the other wing, and then they roll over and you're staring down the line, and what have I got to do? I've just got to kick it up to a pack of 6 or 8, and if you're the great centre half forward of Wayne Carey, it's almost like nobody's particularly playing on you, although I could be your opponent principally if it's centre half forward. But all of a sudden, there's 4 or 5 that are guarding a little 5 square metre territory, and you sit there and go, well, how do I get you one-on-one? Like the good old days where the Djakovic and Careys and Kernahan versus Chris Langford and all that, the great content.
Back then also, because you had one guy, it would become a fitness thing as well. So you've got one guy for the game. So you sort of like in the last quarter, you think, well, my opponent's buggered, I'm going to keep running, and you might pick up a few touches. You can't do that because people rotate on and off you, they're on and off the boat. So you don't have that stamina doesn't become an advantage anymore. So
That's right.
Now, Dora, one of the other great West Australians that played for Carlton, before you got there was Kenny Hunter. And one of the things I noticed about you and Kenny Hunter is every time you ran out onto the field and ran through the banner, you were on the left and he was on the right, and you ran through together. Now, what was all that about? Can you tell us?
I never noticed that.
I've never noticed that.
I'm not sure.
Didn't you ever notice that?
I'm not sure.
Seriously? This is the first time you've heard about it?
No, we were all close, Kenny and I, and his wife Amanda and my wife Lynn and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So what Rocky and Rocco, what he's alluding to here, so I'll define it in very simple terms. So if you run out, all you're looking from the back view is number 6 and number 9.
There was never number 9 and number 6?
No, it was always Dora on the left.
So it was always a 69er. So I don't really know what that means.
You did that on purpose?
Yeah. So I don't know what happens, and I think Rocco just said to me, tell him the story, or Rocky just said, tell him the story about the banner.
Oh, yeah.
When we were out at Waverley with Wolsey. We played Geelong out at Waverley, and the cheer squad get the big banner, the old blocks of 4x4 sort of thing, 12 or 15 metres high with a big banner and everything. Yeah. And then I run out. The ropes busted on the banner. I was the last one out, 6 and 9 on the way out. So at the end of the day, like the banners collapsed, and all of a sudden somebody forgot to yell out timber, and the banners smashed me and it missed my head but got me on the shoulder, and it's just banged me straight to the ground. I've gone, oh shit, that hurt. And then all of a sudden, within the space of a minute, I've got this giant orange-sized bulb on my arm. But 2 minutes after that, the runners come out. Wolsey said, get up and stop showing the world that you've got a sore shoulder. And I said, I've just been hit by a block of 4B4. It's nearly killed me. And this was prior to the game. You know, so it was
unbelievable.
I don't think they use wood anymore in those days.
No,
It was
a bit sore for the rest of the game, sort of thing. But we got through it. I
That's
thought,
funny.
come on, Wolsey, you have a bit of compassion, man. I've just been assaulted by a block of wood.
Get up.
Anyway,
what are you doing?
don't show him you're hurt.
Tell us a bit about Wolsey. I mean, from what we can gather, he was a pretty tough, hard coach who really believed in getting you blokes as rock hard fit as he could.
When did he come? Did he come 86?
At the end of 85.
86.
Parko and
The
him
end of
changed
85, him
over.
and Parko did a swap.
Yeah, it was 86, yeah.
So Robert was at Fitzroy.
So he was the coach coming in just as you came in.
Yeah, well, David Parkin would have recruited. He come to Perth.
Yeah.
You know, I had meetings with him and all that with Colo,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then obviously Sticks and Braddles and
Yep,
Lops
yep.
would have been on the conversation pit, and I'm sure at all stages David would have gone to Adelaide to speak to all of those boys as
Yep,
well.
for
So
sure.
then unfortunately, as has happened at Carlton before, success and previous success doesn't justify a long-term coaching career,
Not those
as
days,
David
no.
certainly has had happen to him over a number of times. But they just swapped over. You know, 85 wasn't a great year. I think we got beaten in the elimination final, was
yeah,
it, against
yeah.
North Melbourne. So then that changed over. But as you said, Vince, Robert was hard, but he was very much a tactical coach. Like, he brought a lot of innovative things in with the huddles.
He brought in that huddle where he was huddle.
You know, and you kick it
When was
out.
that?
86.
86.
he brought it
So
in.
a lot of new things. The one with Harmsy, with me, it was almost like if Dooley's got the ball, you know,
Yeah.
we do what we do. If Wayne Harms picks up the ball, like I'm going to, as I said, start just inside the 50-metre mark with my back to Harmsy,
Yeah.
knowing that he's going to send a little 45, 50-metre bullet that'll end up 10 metres just inside or around the back edge of the square. I would turn, grab it and go, and with a bit of luck, Sticks would be on the end of it. If we had a bit of clear traffic, and we did it on numerous occasions, excluding the
bit like
Donald
Hagan's
McDonald one.
And it works well at VFL Park because that was such a big oval.
Yeah.
Whereas it doesn't work well at the Oval in London.
No, where I
That was
got
such a
belted.
that was such a
Yeah, so
small-
you get belted every
Their
time.
accessibility
you need
to
to be
get
smarter
me, yeah.
and realise your
Bloody hell, it was
Limitations.
Your environment's fault. I was a bit weary I couldn't get on the booze that night, but he was really good, and he brought a toughness, and he didn't accept, you know, lack of effort and
Yeah.
things like that, because I think Robert clearly understood that what he had from the time he got at the club was a group of players, including Richard and Nails and Satters and all that came the next year. Not sure who particularly come in 88, but he had a group of players, particularly in that 86, 87, 88 and 89 to a lesser degree,
Yeah.
that could have great success. But unfortunately, for lots of different reasons, we didn't achieve what potentially could have been achieved with the group that was there for a whole pile of different reasons.
And also, you had like Hawthorn was a pretty good side trying to stop you at the time too. In that era, weren't
Yeah.
they?
Well, mate, I think they played, what was it, 83,
7 in a row.
win 83, 84, 85 loss, win 86, win 88, a loss in 87, win 89, win 91. So you know, you take out...
Four premierships in 7 years. Not bad. Sorry, four
David
premierships.
Kernihan came in 88.
Did he? Yeah.
I'm trying to think of
Yeah,
Who's,
me
I'm
too.
not sure.
I was
Simon
just gonna say
Minton
David
Connell
Kennedy.
was... When did Loaf come? Simon Minton Connell, he might have been a year
Nah,
or
he was
one later.
89. Yeah.
But you're right, Hawthorn won 83, 86, 88, 89, 91. So they actually won five, lost three.
Dermot McGregor, a 5-time night, 5-time day. You make sure he tells everyone
It's
that.
a fair accomplishment. So.
Yeah.
That's right. 5 premierships from 8 grand finals in 9 years.
Sick.
Now do you know why I'm so sick of brown and gold?
Oh, and then they did it again recently, gee.
Yes.
Mind you had a few guys who at Carlton who won at 79, 81, 82.
Yeah, that was a good era.
Graz was a classic, and I think he opened the season. Like 81 was his first
David
year. And
Glasgow, yeah.
you know, he played in his first 2 years. He played in 2 flags as a younger, as an 18, 19-year-old. Or
We
20-year-old.
did chat to him
so
about
that's
2 months
pretty
ago.
unique. So, and then of course he gets his third one in 87. So
That's right.
That's pretty good.
When you came over, so Wolsey was the first coach naturally. How'd you find him?
Look, we had hard coaches at East Perth as well.
Yeah.
So I didn't find it much different. He was intense, and some of the training drills we did, I had to murder ball.
Oh, murder
I
ball.
heard about
Murder ball,
100?
suicide.
Was that the one where
the
in the
channel-
wet,
Explain
one
murder
player had to kick it and you had to go and punch it or something?
Well,
As the ball's coming towards you, you had to punch it, and on those cold winter nights, you felt like your hand was broken?
yeah, well, yes and no.
I heard about that one.
The murder ball was small 5x5 square, and he just chucked the ball in the middle, and you just go hell for leather.
Like a dog at a bone.
Yeah.
until someone won it.
Until someone won it. It was, and suicide was one.
Oh wow!
What you were talking about, where you had to run back with the flight of the ball, and someone's running at you there. I mean, who does
Who
that?
gave the names? You guys?
I know.
Or did...
I think the
Oh,
players
so that was
did.
to try and
I
instill
think the
some
players gave
Kenny Hunter type courage.
Courage.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you don't do that at training.
No, you wouldn't have a team for the following week, would you?
Yeah, well, a lot of guys did get injured at training. So,
Scarecrow?
look,
Remember Scarecrow?
Scarecrow.
What was
What was all
Scarecrow?
of
How
it?
can I not
Well,
remember?
well, actually, we've had
You've
it.
got to stand there.
We've had it a couple of times, and I reckon unfortunately, the day
Sunday
that
morning
led
session.
to Robert's demise after the Brisbane Bears game at Princess
Yeah.
Park in 1989. Like Scarecrow was, okay boys, that was a deplorable effort, you'll be here at 7 o'clock in the morning. So just imagine a ring, so the 20 players get in a circle, but what we're doing is we're standing like this.
Yeah.
All right. So your arms are like this, and then at the end of the day, Wolsey would go, Doro, you and Rocky in. So he'd throw a ball in for a minute and a half, we'd be going hammer and tong. The other 18 are standing out here with their arms like this. This went on for an hour. And then you
So
try
you
and
couldn't put your arms
Try and keep
No.
your arms up.
you
Try and
do
keep
that,
your
and then
arms
there was
up.
people
No.
leaning forward
Oh, it's
doing
quite
things
funny.
like this, and he goes, that's not on, so there's another 10 minutes.
In hindsight, it's quite
You know?
funny because you can see guys like this, and all of a sudden, when he's, and then you look away.
If he turned his back on it, you'd sort of bend over to try and get a bit of a
But it didn't
This
reprieve.
is schoolyard
It didn't teach us anything. It was mental.
Resilience, we'll call it
yeah.
resilience.
I think the first time we did that was when we lost to the Eagles in '87.